What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Last night, we had some shocking news break online that had to do with Tango Gameworks not closing down. In fact, it appears another company has come in and actually bought them along with the Hi-Fi Rush IP. We're going to take a look at all of that here today. Also, we are be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 because rumors have been flying all over the place, with some thinking that we've actually figured out what the big feature is going to be for Nintendo's next generation device. And then do you remember that ultra rare GameCube that we had that one image of with Dolphin on the top? Well, we got more images as well as the backstory to it, and you're going to want to see this one. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with that Astro PlayStation 5 controller that looks awesome. It went live and immediately sold out everywhere. Like, as I saw these online retailers post stock for this controller, it was gone so fast. I'm still trying to figure out how to get one of these things, and I'm sure I will at some point. We'll see more stock show up online, and hopefully I can sneak in there and grab one. I had one actually get pulled out of my cart. Well, if you look over on the PlayStation Direct store right now, it just says completely sold out. Concord's controller is still there, by the way. If anyone's interested, the Concord controller is here. But the thing that I'm really happy about here is it does feel like that Astrobot IP is maybe stronger than people were initially thinking. And the fact that this $80 controller, while it is a very unique looking controller, I get that. And limited edition controllers tend to do well unless it's tied to something like Concord, I get it. But in this case, Astro, of course, being like a PlayStation mascot for them with the PS5 shipping with Astro's Playroom, there probably is a lot of brand recognition there with that IP, and I'm hopeful that this does show that maybe that Astrobot game can do really, really well, because that would be an awesome thing to start setting up Team Asobi with a mascot like Astro along with the PlayStation brand. So we'll see as we get closer to that release, because we're actually not that far off, less than a month away starting off September. Also, we had talked about the poor reviews and reception for Borderlands. Well, seems like that did translate over to the opening weekend for it, which we can see over on Forbes. $8.8 million over the debut weekend. Not great. It's a fourth place debut, as they say, and they show that Deadpool and Wolverine, It Ends With Us, Twisters, all ahead of it by a large margin, we can say. And the thing that's really tough about this is the budget for the movie was $115 million. Tack on another $30 million for the marketing, you have $145 million to make up just to break even. They did say, the studio said, that they apparently covered about 60% of its production costs just from pre-sales in the international market for tickets. Even so, that 40% looks like, it looks like an impossible to scale mountain at this point. So it just doesn't seem like this one worked out. And I haven't seen the movie. I'm not really planning on seeing it, but everyone that's really at least viewed it, whether it's in pre-screenings or even over the weekend, said it was one of the worst things they've ever seen when it comes to video game movies. And based on the history of that, that's saying something. Oh, and next week we do have Black Myth Wukong coming out, and I've been keeping tabs on this game here and there, but now that we're getting closer to it, I'll admit I'm getting a bit more excited to pick it up and exactly see what it's all about, since it does seem like a very creative game, whether it's just the lore behind it or kind of the artistic style for it, even maybe some of the gameplay, as it's not that Souls game that most of us were expecting it to be for really the years that it's been shown off. But we should find out a lot more later on this week, because we now have the embargo, as review codes have gone out. Tom Henderson shared this over on his X account, saying that the embargo lifts August 16th. So later on this week, we should start getting scores for it, and it will be coming out, of course, next week. So at this point, I'm going to say Metacritic-wise, I'll throw out the prediction of, I'm going to give it 85. That's what I'm going with. Let me know, though, your prediction for Black Myth Wukong on Metacritic down below in the comments. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2, something we really haven't checked in on in a while now. It's been kind of quiet, and I think that's mostly because we already know that Nintendo is planning to do some sort of reveal here at this point in the next 6 months, but let's face it, I don't think they're gonna wait until the last day of March 2025 to showcase this thing. Should be sooner, and I'm thinking before the end of this year, we'll at least have some sort of trailer that's shown off, at least giving us an idea as to what this thing is and what the big feature is that should set the next generation apart from the current Switch system. Well, over on Fanboards, they've been keeping, we'll say, tabs somewhat for the new system. Mostly they've been digging into things like shipment information and really going into detail with a lot of it, but they have actually come across quite a bit of information that's at least setting up the idea of what that big feature is. First, though, we can see this is posted up. This is over on the mega thread that they have, and it's a good thing they do because it's like hundreds and hundreds of pages. But we can see under August 2024, there's two things that were pointed out here. Both of these seem to be coming from customs data or shipment data, as Nintendo, of course, has to send parts back and forth as they're putting all this together for the next system. It says customs data from June 2024 mentions a 60-watt AC adapter from Delta Electronics, the supplier of the Switch family's AC adapter, which supports USB power delivery. I believe the current Switch is in like the 30-watt range, somewhere in there. So, I mean, this is a significant jump, but you would expect that, and it's actually in line with many other electronics that would charge through like USB Type-C and stuff. Some of the, I'd say, higher-end devices, sure, but you would go with something like that, especially with sort of the jump we're expecting with the chip information that's been thrown around. The big one that people are really talking about, though, is the idea here that customs data from June 2024 mentions there's a fan inside the dock. And you might be wondering, okay, why would they need a fan in the dock if there's already one, we assume, in the main Switch 2 system? Well, over on DualShockers, they say new Switch 2 leaks suggest streaming to TV without docking. And this is referencing a Famaboards post. This was from, we have one from Pablo, and then we have one from Raccoon that a lot of people sent me because they're curious about this maybe being the idea and the position Nintendo's taking. They say, take it with a grain of salt, but I've got told that the main gimmick would be a wireless dock stream Switch, which could explain the fans in it. A mix of Wii U and Switch on steroids with DLSS, basically. It also appears that Raccoon is sort of backing them up, even mentioning it as a reverse Wii U. And as soon as I saw this come up, I did see many people online who were excited about the idea of having dual screen gaming return. And look, there's two ways you can look at it. One, yes, it is a very creative idea to go that route. And when it all works perfectly, according to plan, you can get some genuinely unique and interesting experiences out of your games having two screens available to you, especially right in front of you in the living room. The other side of it, though, is there are many developers, third party usually, as you expect Nintendo to take full advantage of this stuff, third parties, though, who just don't really want to do any of that, and you might have a second screen that's there, and it just has the logo of the game or something because they don't want to deal with that in development. Maybe they're moving it over from another system, and they just want a quick port, and it's like, what do we do with this other screen? Advertise something to them. Okay, look, there's the game, or there's the next game, or there's just a little map, something really basic on that screen. That's the other side of it. So, and also some may just skip it completely because of that. Now, the idea here with fans being in the dock is because it would act independently of the next gen system from Nintendo at all. So, like how we have Chromecast, sort of, I did have a Chromecast that I used for Stadia. It got incredibly hot. I had to put heat sinks on the thing just to try to keep it within a decent thermal range. So fans inside of a little box that most likely would be working to output, we believe, 4K with DLSS, that sort of thing, all transmitting to the TV. You'd probably want some kind of active cooling in there just in case. Otherwise, it's going to be passively cooled and the outside of that thing would get incredibly hot. But just some interesting information to throw in there, as I'm seeing a lot of the Switch 2 stuff go around now as most of people biding their time. Sometimes you get interesting bits like this that maybe I'll pull together or we can talk about very briefly in a segment going forward. But for now, the Switch 2, just waiting for Nintendo to showcase this thing. So here's hoping that's sooner rather than later. Next up, let's talk about Tango Gameworks, as a shocking press release was pushed last night that, I mean, no one saw this coming at all. Most of us believe that Tango Gameworks was just done. Like, Microsoft announced that they were shuttering, and we all had all those posts on places like Twitter and other social media platforms where people who worked there were taking pictures and showing their last day and showing the trophy and awards they've got, and said this wasn't enough, that kind of stuff. But it turns out another company was interested in Tango Gameworks, and they were also interested in Hi-Fi Rush. We can see this is actually in a press release posted up. This is over on Games Press, and that's how fresh it was. Like, it popped up as a press release, and I saw it, and then it started popping up on places like Twitter. But either way, we can see this where it says Tango Gameworks will live on as Microsoft has reached an agreement with publisher Krafton to maintain the studio. Krafton, known for games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, has fully acquired Tango Gameworks from Xbox, as well as the rights to recent action hit Hi-Fi Rush. This from Windows Central, who managed to get a statement from Microsoft saying, "We're working with Krafton to enable the team at Tango Gameworks to continue to build games together, and we look forward to playing their next great game. There will be no impact to the existing catalog of Tango games." And interestingly enough, in that press release, it seems to talk about how they're going to try to get a large amount of the staff, majority of the staff, just moving over here to Krafton, and they want to work on Hi-Fi Rush. That is their big thing. They see a lot of potential in that IP, which I'm not really sure what Microsoft is doing here. This seems very, very strange. Like, maybe it's being done as a favor to Tango Gameworks as, hey, we're like kind of what they did with Toys for Bob. Hey, we don't really want to necessarily have you guys like stick around with us, but we don't mind if you go independent and then you can contract a game out to us and we'll go that route. In this case, hey, you guys are out in Japan. You're pretty far away from all of our other studios, including our home office. We don't really want to deal with that kind of management right now, and we're going to maybe try to sell you off to, in this case, Krafton. That's all I can really assume here, because it seems strange that they would create, Tango Gameworks, under Microsoft at the time, create a new intellectual property, launch it with as Hi-Fi Rush, and it actually be a resounding success critically, maybe not through sales, but again, it technically came out on Game Pass, and we're still not really sure how that works in terms of the numbers behind the scenes and what they consider a success and what's a failure. But then it did come out on the PlayStation 5, and it didn't exactly light the world on fire there either, so who's really to say? But now it seems Krafton just owns Tango Gameworks and are going to be full speed ahead with what I figure is going to be Hi-Fi Rush 2. But I guess for all of us, this is just good news, because the alternative is Tango Gameworks is gone, and let's be real, Hi-Fi Rush is just completely shelved because there's no one else to work on it, and that would have been it. In this case, though, Hi-Fi Rush goes to Krafton, but all the other games that were created by Tango Gameworks, Evil Within, the current Hi-Fi Rush, will just stay on all platforms that they are now, so it's not like Krafton's going to all of a sudden try to lock those down and move them elsewhere, nothing like that. But I am curious what their strategy is going to be in the future with Hi-Fi Rush, because, I mean, they would be starting up development here this year. Who knows how much longer it would take for that to get out the door, based on how we see games now. Maybe 3 years or so, since they at least have the baseline of Hi-Fi Rush. But hey, I just see this as good news, pretty much outright. Tango Gameworks is going to live on. Next up, let's talk about that rare Dolphin GameCube that had this one image that was shared by Console Variations over on Twitter X, and we weren't really sure what to make of it. Now, this apparently is a GameCube that was spotted on one of Rare's display cases at their studio a while ago, and now we have a bunch of images of it, and unfortunately a well-kept secret that we now know about this specific system. Well, we can go through some of the images here, and I'll have this link down below in the sources to their website where they have all these posted so you can see them for yourself. But this is Console Variations over on their blog, and they say the console is a physical wooden system, which is non-functional. The dream has been shattered regarding firmware and dumps. The console was made of wood with a plastic feeling and texture. It was also much heavier than a regular GameCube, which, yeah, if it's made out of wood, yes, it absolutely would be heavier in that case. But I guess the controller ports on the front look a bit different with that cutout. It's not just round, and they point out it looks kind of like a maybe Dreamcast, sort of, in terms of the controller ports. Also, the power button being a bit different, where it wraps around the front, the corner part. And on the back, you still have that handle, but no ports at all. And then obviously the jewel on the top just says Dolphin and kind of takes on the Nintendo 64 3D font setup. Very disappointing, I think, though, that this is just a piece of wood. But I guess if this is like one of the first iterations of the GameCube, it would just start out as sort of a mock-up, them kind of playing around with the idea of the shape it would take, maybe the color, where the controller ports would go. They wouldn't necessarily start up with a fully functional working system outright, so I guess in terms of history, this is very interesting, sure. But in terms of being able to discover maybe a brand new system that we've never seen before from Nintendo and maybe get some weird, super early stages firmware and OS and what changed, that's just not the case here. But pretty cool to look at, I guess, the fact that they made a GameCube completely out of wood and left it on Rare's shelf for some reason. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a sale that is currently ongoing at Best Buy. And this sale has the potential to be incredible or terrible. But so far, it's at least looked okay, I feel like. Let's take a look. This is over on Best Buy now, and this is their 10 days, 10 games, $10. So every day for, at this point, the next, 7 days or so, they'll do 10 days of this. Each game they post here will just be $10. So the first one was just Madden, which, okay, great. But then Sonic Superstars on the Switch, that was knocked down from $60 to $10. So that's a pretty good deal there, I feel like. Skull and Bones, okay, that's $10, that's $6 off, and the funny thing here, okay, so Sonic Superstars, I noticed, was going in and out of stock and eventually just sold out. Skull and Bones never seemed to sell out. It's still there for $10, which is, well, that tells you all you need to know about that game. Here's the move for me, okay? So again, we still have a bunch of games here in front of us over the next week and a half. They can pop up here and be $10. For me, the move is Suicide Squad. I'm really hoping that shows up here for $10. That feels like, okay, I'll check this game out for $10. That is a fair price, which is funny because I'm not saying the same for Skull and Bones, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention so you can keep an eye on this and see exactly what pops up, because by the time I tell you about a game that's here the next day, it'll most likely be gone and something else will be up. So just keep an eye on this page every day and cross our fingers for something good. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you want to see Nintendo bring back dual screen gaming for the next generation, even if it means some developers might end up skipping the unique design? 74% just say no, 26% though say yes. Want a trip back to the old days of the Wii U and the 3DS. I mean, it was an interesting time period, sure, but the Wii U was not a successful one for Nintendo. So I feel like if they keep things more on the simpler side when it comes to whatever their big feature is for this new device, is probably a better idea for them. But I will say this, the idea of having the dual screen setup as an option, maybe, for example, to play DS games when it's docked or streamed and docked, right, where it connects wirelessly, you have one screen in front of you, the other screen on your TV, just as a way to pretty much solve a problem they have here, which is they don't have two screens at this time for their new system or their current system. That would be fine, I think. Just other ways to use the system like we have with Labo, or technically there are ways you can have two Switches interact with each other with two different screens for things like Mario Party, for example. I saw people show off like pianos and stuff that go across them. That feels like the better route, as opposed to it's two screens and you have to figure out a way how to use this, because if you tell every third party about that, there are many that are probably just gonna be like, we're good, we'll just kind of pass for now. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Smush, who says, I'm surprised Sony didn't step in sooner. Sounds like they bear some responsibility for what has happened. Oh, they absolutely bear responsibility. I mean, they bought Bungie. I don't think they were excited or thrilled to have to step in at all. Remember, they bought Bungie with also the belief that there would be an intangible value to them, that they would help at least kind of grade and judge some of these live service games and the potential they have, and also some advice as to what the other side of the release looks like when it comes to supporting that game, which is seemingly what Naughty Dog took to heart and decided, we don't want to just be a Last of Us Online studio, we want to make single-player games. So in that regard, all right, they may, while I would have liked to have seen Last of Us Online come out and just be multiplayer and not necessarily have to be this big live service thing, they may have helped Naughty Dog dodge a bullet if that means we don't get any more of those single-player games ever from them. On the other side, though, now Sony seemingly is running the studio they bought that would help them run their live service game. So I do feel like Sony waited to the last minute to step in because they really did not want to be in this position right now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. And if you missed last episode, it is up here in the cards right next to me. Or maybe you missed the episode I posted over the weekend where I talk about an Xbox feature that everyone seems to have forgotten about from their original system. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.